Well, I started in 1980, which was 15 years ago, and the reason why is my husband, who was a programmer at the time, he got an Apple II computer for Christmas, 1979, and while he was at work during the day, I just had a baby, so I was at home, and while he was at work during the day, I was playing this adventure game, a text adventure game, and it was called Colossal Cave. I really got into it. I just loved the idea of an interactive story, and just had to play this game. I was just really drawn into it, and had to finish it. And just, was playing it hour after hour. And when I finished it, I wanted to play more games like this, but there weren't any. And so I thought I was really interested in my response to this. So I thought, well, I might be able to do this kind of thing. And so I sat down and designed myself a game that was like that, the interactive story.
Hello, welcome back to Drink the Video Games. I'm Brian, and today we'll be carrying on with our FMV games, and this is one of the most notorious of them all. At the time of its release, in August of 1995, this SierraOnline adventure game was more famous for its controversial horror content than it was for the cutting-edge technology it employed to bring this game to life. Today we are talking about Phantasmagoria.
This reporter attended Carnot's Phantasmagoria show in London's Egyptian Theatre last night and found it horrific, spine-tingling, and incredible.
In Phantasmagoria, we take on the role of Adrienne Delaney, a mystery novelist who has just moved into a new home with her husband Don, but the house isn't exactly what it seems. Formerly owned by a mysterious magician, Carnot Carnavash, the house will begin to get into Adrienne and Don's psyche, and we'll have to navigate our way through the hauntings and nightmares in an effort to escape the horrors of this mansion. SierraOnline was founded in 1979 by Ken and Roberta Williams, and while that's a story for a different season of Drink the Video Games, it's important to understand the impact that this pair of game makers had on the industry. On May 5th, 1980, they would release their first video game, Mystery House, which would be the first ever graphical adventure game. Before then, all adventures were text-based, and Mystery House really upped the immersion by including graphics. Now that might seem a pretty small thing to do, but in 1980, it was actually a very big thing to do when everything in a video game had to fit on a 5¼ floppy disk. So the pair were off and running, with Ken programming and Roberta Williams writing and designing the games. In 1984, the world would get another example of Roberta Williams' storytelling abilities with the release of one of the most important video games of them all, King's Quest. So how do we get from a beloved fantasy adventure game series to the horror that would be Phantasmagoria?
One of the real pioneers in the computer game business is Roberta Williams. She and her husband Ken wrote their first game, I guess it was 15 years ago now. And they keep on pushing the edge with every new game. Roberta's newest game is called Phantasmagoria. And I tell you, I must tell you, I love this game. I think it's the great interface for a role-playing game. I really feel like I'm inside the game. Tell us, first of all, what's the story of the game so we can set it up?
Okay, you play the role of Adrienne Delaney, who you can see standing there. And her and her husband have just moved into this kind of old haunted house that was owned by a magician over 100 years before.
So a lot of weird stuff goes on.
Yes, there's an evil in this house, and it has taken over her husband at this point.
Now, Roberta Williams wasn't new to spooky games. The aforementioned Mystery House, as well as the Laura Bow series, which began in 1989, both dealt with crime and murder, but not on the same level that Phantasmagoria would explore. And she also didn't want to get pigeonholed into telling only those fantasy, family-oriented types of stories. She wanted to explore writing games with more emotion. According to an interview with Lorelei Shannon for the book Phantasmagoria, the official Sierra Insider's Guide, that despite a traumatic experience watching horror movies as a child, Williams would begin enjoying these types of tales in her teenage years. Stephen King and Edgar Allan Poe are both cited as inspirations for the game, and the game was something that Roberta had wanted to tackle for a long time, but with the advent of faster CD-ROM drives and the ability to use real actors to tell her story, she felt that the time was right to bring her horror game to the masses. But putting this together wouldn't be easy. The technology was available now, but Sierra was the king of PC gaming, so Phantasmagoria would have to be the best example of this genre. It would also be really expensive to make, so while it was important that the game was good, it would be as important that it would be financially successful. And from the start, Roberta Williams' story would flirt with disaster.
Phantasmagoria is for the horror fans, for people that like Stephen King, Alfred Hitchcock type of movies or stories. It is very cinematic. It's somewhat movie-like, but it is also a game. It's a very visual, interactive storytelling experience. Phantasmagoria differs from others in its genre, meaning adventure games, in that it is a little more story-like. It is more cinematic. It is more like a movie in that we use a lot of cinematic effects and camera angles. But like others in its genre, it does have inventory objects you can solve puzzles, you can explore your environment. It is horror, so it does have that aspect to it, a serious aspect.
With the intention of crafting this new horror game as more of an interactive adventure movie, as opposed to the point-and-click adventures Sierra was creating at the time, the writing would have to be different. There would be actors, filming, sets, stage cues, and so the new horror game gets written as a full-on screenplay. But a video game has different paths to take and different mysteries to explore, so the screenplay would reach 550 pages according to an article from Escapist magazine. For comparison's sake, Christopher Nolan's script for Oppenheimer was 198 pages. Andy Hoyos, the art director for the game, would come in to assist with story elements and brainstorming sessions, and in the end, it would take about 6 months of research and writing to get the script to come together. Taking the name Phantasmagoria from a magician's reference book, this game would target a more casual game-playing audience than the hardcore adventure gamers Sierra normally catered to. It would also be dark, including a fair bit of violence and a sexual assault, which would put Phantasmagoria in the crosshairs of controversy, but more on that later.
I just want to see it, I want to see it grow and prosper and become important in the entertainment industry. I want Sierra and the people in Sierra to really make their mark in the entertainment industry and not just be thought of as a computer game company, but really we have talented animators and writers and actors and composers and we understand all the ins and outs of the entertainment industry as well as anybody in the entertainment industry. I also feel that I would like Sierra to be one of the major companies to really set the standards for what an interactive story or movie is in the future. What is that? Everybody now is still sort of jockeying for that position as to what it is, and nobody's really hit that mark yet. I'd like to think Sierra could do that.
With the script coming along, the team at Sierra could now turn their attention to designing the game. Andy Hoyos, who we just mentioned, is the art director for the game, and decides to go with a Tim Burton meets Hellraiser aesthetic for the environments of the game. Mark Hood, a computer programmer, and Mark Siebert, the music director, would serve alongside Roberta Williams as producers for the game, but the task at hand was daunting. Mark Hood had already had a very impressive career in the video game industry by 1995, and Siebert had been scoring games since the late 80s, but Phantasmagoria was going to be a Hollywood production as much or more so than anything they had ever done before. How do you go from designing a video game to directing what amounts to a feature-length film? The biggest hurdle was going to be managing all the moving parts. Siebert states in an interview with Lorelei Shannon that Hollywood agencies, actors, directors, animal handlers, and special effects houses all had to be dealt with by outside companies. Meaning that while SierraOnline knew how to do the software part, to bring Roberta Williams' vision to life, they'd have to outsource. And outsourcing means added expense and time. But luckily within a few weeks, both sides of the development more or less understood what needed to be done to carry the project forward.
Now these are some of the actual drawings from Phantasmagoria.
Yes, these are the concept sketches. I'll begin concepting an area and let it develop kind of slowly and work with our technical people to make sure that, in fact, this can be constructed and made.
In FMV adventures in the past, some of the acting has been a little bit, how shall I say, cheesy. Mm-hmm. What are the actors like in Phantasmagoria?
Oh, no, these are very professional people. This is not like other things that you've seen.
Gerald B. Wolfe, the director of photography for the game, utilized mannequins to help the art department set up the cameras at the correct angles to get the footage that they would need, and in the correct scale to create a seamless presentation for the final project. It would take roughly 40 hours worth of film footage to get the basic environments of the game created, doors opening, drawers closing, and the like. And that's even before they had a single take with live actors. But now that we have everyone on board with Roberta Williams' vision, and we've gotten our contacts with the movie departments made, let's roll camera and get to filming. Actually, there's one other movie department that can give us a hand with things around here. Let me call up Michaela from Drink the Movies to stop by and help mix up a cocktail to, get the ball rolling on this thing. Hello, Michaela, and welcome back to Drink the Video Games. Thank you so much for joining me today, because we need some help getting Phantasmagoria going, and you are the movie person that I had in mind when I wanted to bring someone in to chat about the game with me and to mix up a cocktail. So how are you doing today?
I'm awesome. I'm super excited. Phantasmagoria is a game that I've always wanted to play that was too adult for me to play when it came out, according to my father, which is odd because he pretty much let me watch any rated R movie that I could get my hands on, and that was fine. But this video game seemed a little too adult. So I'm super excited to bring you a cocktail that's going to be dark and mysterious and gothic, just like the game seemed to look like it was going to be.
Just like the box looked on the shelf, yeah, for sure. And absolutely. So this game, it came out in August of 1995. And, not to put too fine a point on our ages here, Michaela, but yeah, that put us right at 13 years old. So yeah, the only thing we had to go off of was the box, which is right here. And if you look at the box right here, it says rated M for mature, ages 17 plus. We were definitely not that. So the only thing we really knew about the game, I don't know if you ever saw any advertisements for the game or reviews of the game, but you said in our very first introductory episode of Drink the Video Games that you remember seeing this box and being seduced by the imagery here on the front,
yeah,
and then on the back of the box here as well. And we'll take a look at a couple of these things here. So horror unfolds in hot, gripping chapters filling 7 CDs. What began as a dream soon becomes a nightmare. That's all pretty good stuff. And it says warning right down here, right in very bold thing. This game contains adult subject matter. Parental guidance is suggested. Not appropriate for children under 13. And we were at 13, I guess, so we might have been okay. But yeah, this game was mysterious and dark. Do you remember seeing this box on the shelf, Michaela?
Oh, absolutely. This box haunted my fantasies. If you look at the back, and I'm blushing like crazy saying this, but if you look at the back, in the top right corner, I think there's a picture of a guy behind a girl with his hand on her neck. I haven't even seen it I don't know, since I was 13, but he's got his hand kind of draped on her neck. It looks like he's about to take something off of her body. Anyway, it's super, super hot. And I was like, I definitely want to play this game. But of course, my father was like, that's a bad idea. That's he had no idea what it was actually about. So I don't know how much adultness is really sexual, or is it more terror and horror driven? I don't know. But it's got the black kind of front. It's got kind of a blood drippy down kind of effect underneath the name Phantasmagoria. So it's very vampire-esque. Yeah. And I don't know. You don't see the girl's face at the front, but she's wearing this cloak dress thing. It's like I said, it was very striking. And I stared at this box at GameStop for months.
Well, 1995 was 30 years ago, so I guess that imagery definitely stuck with you, and you never even played the game. We're going to talk about here in the episode, about kind of the controversy that went along with the game, and then obviously, Michaela, you should check out the YouTube channel along with everyone else for when I play through the game. You can see if it lives up to those expectations in your brain as we go through that. But yeah, I thought we should come up with a cocktail here that was, indicative of the game, that, really captured onto the horror elements of that. Not knowing much about the game other than the box and how intriguing it was to you. The game basically is about a newlywed couple, Don and Adrian. They move into a house. It is Carnavash. He is a magician, kind of like this evil magician kind of guy is his mansion, and he did a lot of sacrificial rituals and all sorts of terrible things, and of course that's going to get into your psyche. So we needed a cocktail that was going to capture that, and I think that this one did really good. I'm excited to talk about it with you here because we are mixing up a Black Magic Martini.
So what you're going to do is you're going to take a shaker tin. You're going to add 2.5 ounces of black vodka. You're going to add 2/3 of an ounce of Chambord. And then just a hint of luster dust. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the luster dust. I use silver because I just wanted something to give just a shimmery effect to go against the blackness of the vodka. And then you're going to shake that up. Then you're going to strain it into a chilled martini glass or a goblet or something gothic like, I don't know. I had this champagne flute that I thought looked really great. And I put it in there. And then you're going to garnish it with some cherries. Now, when we were doing this, I had a couple of questions. I wanted you to talk a little bit about the black vodka that you chose, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about the cherries. This is supposed to be dark and rich and mysterious, so I would go with like the Luxardo cherries or like the dark Bing cherries. I wouldn't do the bright pink ones or the bright red ones. The Amarena cherries are also amazing with this. It's going to add this kind of luscious sweetness because inevitably a little bit of the juice is going to get into the glass. And that's going to add just a hint of, I don't know, velvetyness that if you just go and get like the Bing cherries from the grocery store that are bright red, that's not going to offer the same effect. So take that with what you will, because this cocktail is effects driven for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It is effects driven, and it starts with that first ingredient you mentioned there, the black vodka. Black vodka is something that is new to me. I guess it's been around for a couple of years. The first one was coming out of Germany, but there's several now. The brand that we used is called Vibe Black Vodka. I believe that it's made here in the United States, but literally it is just vodka that has been, color treated to become black. So various, coloring agents go into it and they make it black. Now, what I really like about this cocktail is, we love a good martini around here, and that's what this is, but this is such like a mental exercise drinking this, because you look at it and you're like, well, it has some Chambord in there. It's like dark and luxurious looking. Like this is going to be sweet, or this is going to be fruity or fruit forward, but it's not. It is bone dry. It like gets in your head like the whole time you're drinking it. You're like, this tastes like what a martini tastes like, but it does not taste like what it looks like it should taste like, which is wild. It is really good. And I'm on record as saying I don't really care for vodka martinis that much. I'm more of a gin guy when it comes to a martini. But I love the addition of the Chambord here, because the Chambord is a little bit tart. It is velvety smooth, right? Because it has the addition of the cognac brandy base to it. And it just is very, very lovely. So if you close your eyes and drink this, you're like, man, this is a really nice martini. But you look at it and your brain and your taste buds, they can't sync up. It is wild. It is pretty crazy. The luster dust, as you mentioned, I use silver as well. I used a metallic silver liquid luster dust shimmer to it. And mine didn't come through as well as yours. I think you probably used a dry powder version.
I did.
And I think that's going to take better here in this application.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, look, this is definitely a vodka forward cocktail. So if vodka ain't your thing, you should still give it a try because it just looks really, really cool. But if you're not into vodka, this is not going to be your jam. I grew up loving vodka. Vodka was definitely my first liquor that I drank all the time. It was really nice to go back to a vodka martini, to be honest, because since, the invention of Drink the Movies, I've been doing a ton of gin martinis, but not vodka so much. So couple of pointers, your black vodka, any vodka, you can put it in the fridge as long as it is actually vodka and not like fruit juice vodka. And that's where you should keep it, because it should be really, really cold. You're going to go ahead and use it in a shaker and with ice anyway, but you want it to be super, super cold because you don't want too much ice melt, because the idea is that you want to actually taste all the richness in the vodka. I completely agree with you. The first sip of this, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so much booze. But then the second sip, I was like, oh, there's that Chambord. And by the end of it, I was like, am I in a house with a crazy magician? Where's the guy who's going to hold my neck? It's amazing. It's so great. Everybody should try this drink.
It transports you right to Carnavash's mansion alongside of Don and Adrian there for sure. So yeah, that is the Black Magic Martini. It is the perfect accompaniment to this dark terrorizing game, and that's exactly what we're going to be getting back to. So thank you so much for joining me, Michaela. Always a pleasure to have you on and mix up a cocktail for our games. But now let's get back to the task at hand, and let's see what's going on with Phantasmagoria.
How different was it, like, doing a CD-ROM game acting as opposed to TV and film?
It's quite different.
It's a lot more technical.
Much more technical. We'd be in the middle of the scene and doing something, and they'll go, wait a minute, your arm's in the wall. Which wall is it?
Yeah, I mean, you have to completely use your imagination for everything, because you have nothing there but, just the other actor.
Having done it, what do you prefer? Or maybe you shouldn't say it.
Oh, CD-ROM, absolutely. Hands down.
After watching all of the audition tapes, the cast includes Victoria Morcell, starring as Adrienne Delaney, and David Holm as her husband, Don Gordon, along with 23 others. Directed by Peter Maris, the filming would go on for about 4 months, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and the cost begins to balloon. What had originally began as an $800,000 budget had grown to around $4.5 million, and the tensions were rising. The cast was being asked to shoot entirely on blue screen, which wasn't something actors of the time had much experience with, and they were made to repeat motions over and over again. This was going to be a computer game after all, so anytime a character moved in the game, it would need to be filmed in real life. There were even animals that needed to be handled, Doberman pinschers, cats, rats, but despite all the hardships and challenges, all of the scenes that were filmed for the game got used in the game, according to an interview with Adventure Classic Gaming.
Thankfully, Sierra realizes the enormity of the project and has reacted accordingly. They've constructed a $1 million studio facility near Yosemite National Park in California. It contains a 50 by 50 foot blue screen wall and state-of-the-art camera, editing and recording equipment. It almost takes one back to the golden age of Tinseltown, don't it? Phantasmagoria is an enormous departure, not just for Roberta Williams, but for Sierra as well. There are very few people today making computer games with production values like this. All the time and money are bound to pay off in a great-looking game.
The music would also be an important piece for setting the tone of the game. Mark Siebert was in charge of the music department and had been crafting music for Sierra since 1988's Police Quest 2. By the time 1995 rolls around, PC gamers are used to having CD audio quality in their games, and Phantasmagoria would employ a full suite of music, and for the first time in a SierraOnline game, the score would be recorded live rather than being created digitally. Sierra would even go as far as employing a 135-piece choir for the opening credit theme.
The Sierra family was one of the more active and prolific companies at this winter's CES. Still in production, is the Roberta Williams penned chiller Phantasmagoria. This interactive horror movie will feature 900 3D rendered backgrounds and 16 main characters, all brought to life by real actors. This monster is currently slated to fill up 6 CDs, but Sierra insiders are now saying that it will spill over into 7. This scary project should find its way to the store shelves sometime this spring.
All told, Phantasmagoria would take about 2 years to develop, with Roberta Williams saying, "It took a full year just to get people to understand what I wanted to do," according to Sierra's Interaction magazine. Originally intending to release either in late 1993 or early 1994, delays took hold and things kept getting pushed back. The world would eventually be given its first look at Sierra's entry into the FMV horror genre at the 1994 Consumer Electronics Show. It was announced at that CES that the game would be available later that year on 2 CDs, but neither of those announcements would hold true. Further delays to refine the way the game handled the cinematics crept on, and the release of the game goes from December of 1994 until the day the game would finally release on August 24th, 1995.
Never has a piece of software been given such a hard sell. The hype has reached new heights. This guy's coming down the CN Tower, computer in hand. Really? And that really is the Empire State Building bathed in Microsoft's corporate colors. 2, 1, here. The cyber hype has been relentless.
Go for it!
It's been worldwide.
There's never been any sale like it ever.
And it's paying off.
Your total is $145.33.
Yes. August 24th, 1995. An important day in PC history. Not only could you finally grab the new 7-CD FMV horror game by Roberta Williams, you could also upgrade to Windows 95. Yes, Phantasmagoria and Windows 95 released on the same day. and the game would release for Windows 95, 3.1, and MS-DOS, with the Macintosh version coming out in November. And if you were in Japan, the game got ported to the Japanese Sega Saturn, fully translated and dubbed into Japanese. So with 2 years of development, an entire film studio being built at Sierra's headquarters, the exhaustive filming schedule, the delayed release, and $4.5 million spent on the game, how was Sierra going to measure success here? Oh, and remember before, when I said that it would also be dark, including a fair bit of violence and a sexual assault, which would put Phantasmagoria in the crosshairs of controversy? I wasn't kidding. Let's talk about that. Despite Sierra's attempts to calm the nerves of the general gaming public with the level of violence in their new game by implementing a self-censorship option within the game and voluntarily labeling the game with the newly formed ESRB rating system, which indicated that this game wasn't intended for gamers under the age of 17, the game was being boycotted and even banned. CompUSA, one of the largest computer retailers in the United States, wouldn't be carrying the game, and according to an article in Interaction magazine, there were calls to boycott the game from various parents and religious groups, and the game would even be banned outright in Australia for its violent content. It was easy to take jabs at this violent video game, but it was harder to take jabs at the game's creator, so Sierra goes on the offensive, with Roberta Williams becoming the real face of the game. People wanted to know, is Phantasmagoria really that violent? Doom and Mortal Kombat are violent, and this game at least has a story. What about films? They can be violent and cover adult subject matter, so it's hard to say for sure where the line should be drawn. But what we can say is that controversy sells, because whether you thought the game was too over the top or not, bans and boycotts only leave the people wanting to know what all the fuss is about.
Actually, Bob, this is a review of Sierra's long-awaited horror game, Phantasmagoria. The Carnavash estate that you mentioned is fictional, the creation of Roberta Williams.
But surely, Bob, you have to admit that for being fictional, the house looks terrific.
However tempting it might be to talk about this impressive house, Bob, I think it's more important to warn people about this game. Phantasmagoria has been overdue for almost a year now, and it's worked eager gamers into a froth. They're bound to be disappointed by the final product.
Oh, come on.
All these boycotts and mixed reviews were no match for Roberta Williams, and Sierra would cash in big time with Phantasmagoria. According to a Business Wire article from 1995, Phantasmagoria sold 300,000 copies in its first weekend, earning approximately $12 million, and would carry on to be SierraOnline's first title to cross the 1 million units sold mark. It would also garnish some critical acclaim by winning Game Magazine's Best Adventure Game of the Year and being nominated for Game of the Year by PC Computing Magazine. The success of Phantasmagoria was important to the bottom line for Sierra, and a sequel would release the following year. Phantasmagoria: A Puzzle of Flesh would release in November of 1996, but Roberta Williams wouldn't be involved. She was off working on King's Quest VII, so the game would be written and designed by Lorelei Shannon, who had worked with Williams in the past, and even conducted a lot of the interviews I've cited in this episode. The sequel doesn't share any of the story elements from the first game, so it's more or less its own standalone game. There were plans for a third installment, but the sale and subsequent downsizing of SierraOnline basically put that on permanent hold, as the beloved game studio would begin a decade-long slide through the hands of software conglomerates. It's hard to describe just how big of a deal Phantasmagoria was. It wasn't the first game of its kind. A game we've discussed, The Seventh Guest, released in 1993, and Wing Commander 3 and the Tex Murphy game Under a Killing Moon, both released in 1994, both of which had similar film quality ambitions. So by the time it came out, no one was touting the technology and scope of what was accomplished with Phantasmagoria. But Roberta Williams was PC gaming royalty, and SierraOnline was the shining star of this genre. Not only was Phantasmagoria bigger and higher budgeted than those games, it also had the industry weight of that brand behind it. If you were familiar with PC gaming at all in 1995, you heard of Phantasmagoria. It was dark, and it was like controlling a movie, and it came on 7 discs, and everyone wanted to see what was such a big deal about this game. As for me, I unfortunately didn't get to experience this game in 1995. It always intrigued me, but eluded me. I remember poring over PC magazines, seeing the articles and advertisements for it, seeing the screenshots, and the box art always had me wondering, how bad could it be, really? Sierra is a studio that I've liked since I first got into computer games, so the idea of a cutting-edge graphical adventure game by them blew my mind as a kid, and knowing what all went into the game as an adult still blows my mind. And regardless of whether you think the game is any good, you have to admire the vision and tenacity to get something like this put together. Now I want to know, what is your experience with Phantasmagoria? Did you play this game back in 1995, or was it banned where you were? Have you checked out the sequel, or revisited it later on Steam or Good Old Games? And more importantly, did you have a Black Magic Martini while you went back to Carnavash's Haunted Mansion? Let me know down in the comments or on social media. It's at Drink the Video Games on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And check out YouTube for the video version of the podcast, as well as the upcoming playthrough of Phantasmagoria. If you'd like to support Drink the Video Games or Drink the Movies, Patreon is a great way to get bonus content and gaming, cocktail, and movie hangouts and chats. Check out drinkthemovies.com for links to all of that. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Drink the Video Games, talking about Phantasmagoria. Like and subscribe, and I'll be back next month with another FMV game. Cheers.